All right. And just like that, we are going live, friends. Waiting for the system to tell me. And we are live. Welcome back to another live show. We're going to talk more about a fascinating new fasting study that details the exact duration of your feeding fasting window throughout the day that might benefit your tumor suppressor proteins known as P53, also a cellular phenomenon known as cellular senescence. We'll talk more about that, what that is and how that is related to longevity, and also inflammatory biomarkers and autophagy. So I think this study is quite fascinating. I want to welcome you here. Thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you for being here, friends. If you have any comments, please just let me know in the chat bar here. Very grateful that you were live. So let's dive right into the study. Again, very fascinating new study. There was a 30-day study in 25 healthy young males. I know the ladies in the crowd are going to be upset that this study only looked at men, but I didn't design this study. This was scientists in Germany designed the study, this 30-day study. And what's unique about this study is throughout different time points. Let me just share with you the study protocols as I dive into what they actually found. They were looking at metabolomic changes specifically related to markers of tumor suppressor proteins, cellular senescence, autophagy, and inflammatory biomarkers at time points 0, at time points 2 weeks after 2 weeks during the fast, over 30 days of fasting, and then 1 week after the fasting session ended. And this was during the month of Ramadan for some folks in Germany, the 25 different young healthy men that were part of the study. And here's what they found that was quite peculiar and I think quite interesting, is a demonstrable increase in autophagy. Now, many people, at least they were, I think, pre-COVID, very interested in enhancing autophagy for its purported improvements in mitochondrial function and longevity and so forth. But what you see here is an increase in an autophagy initiation protein known as HEG5 and HEG1. And so you're seeing a significant increase there. You're also seeing reductions in a few different inflammatory cytokines and then improvements in cellular senescence throughout the duration of the fast, which was just between 17 hours a day and 19 hours a day of fasting. So you can do the math on the feeding window, but again, this was during the month of Ramadan. The title of the paper here is The Effect of Prolonged Intermittent Fasting on Autophagy, Inflammasome, and Senescence Gene Expression, an exploratory study in human young males. Again, what I think is fascinating about this study is it's never been conducted. A study of this kind hasn't been conducted hitherto. We haven't looked at the exact metabolomic and messenger RNA increases with fasting. There's only been one other related study in June of 2019. So this is quite fascinating. But again, just want to acknowledge our folks that are here. And again, thank you for being here. If you're enjoying the content, hit the like button. Just let me know where you're from in the comments. And let's continue on and talk about what I think is so fascinating. So what you see here is this is the initiation protein for autophagy. And you see at time point 0, time point 2, time point 3. And remember, time point 4, TP4, is 1 week after the fast ends. And so what you're seeing here is a demonstrable increase in the autophagy initiation proteins, especially after 2 weeks, and then of course 4 weeks after daily fasting. And so again, what are the take homes here? This is what I think, and this is what I've been teaching folks for a long time, is consistency is important. So I think many people get excited about doing these 5-day, 7-day fasts. I think they're unnecessary for most people, but being more consistent about when you eat and when you stop feeding or starting your fasting window every single day is most important. So that's what this study looked at, is consistency with the 17 to 19 hour window every single day for 30 days. And again, what you're seeing here is a massive increase in the expression of autophagy initiation proteins. And so that's what you're seeing here. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about what this is. This is a tumor suppressor protein. I'm going to get into that. But first, I do just want to remind all of you that are here live, a tool that we created over at Myoscience is the Berberine Fasting Accelerator. This is a great natural product that has not only berberine hydrochloride in a significant dose, but also alpha-lipoic acid and biotin, which are synergistic. This is a great formula for folks that suffer from cravings and wanting to overindulge in the evening time. So if you're one to overindulge at dinner, or you want to have cookies and ice cream and snacks and all that in the evening, you can take 2 to 3 capsules when you kickstart your fast in the evening. Remember, when you stop eating your last meal, that is time point 0, of fasting. So the earlier that you can cut off your feeding window, arguably the better it is from a long-term health perspective, metabolic health, and potentially fat loss and weight loss. So if you struggle with evening food cravings, check out the Berberine Fasting Accelerator. I'll put links below. You can use the coupon code podcast to save. Now, going back to this I think is the most important finding of the study. What you're looking at here are increases in messenger RNA related to tumor suppressor protein P53. Very important. We know cancer is on the rise and has been on the rise for a number of years. And unfortunately, my brother has two really close friends that just got diagnosed, one with colon cancer and one with pancreatic cancer. And we were talking about dietary strategies and tools. One of the first things that I would do is start fasting fastidiously daily, and also maybe sprinkle in some prolonged fast during the week. But we now know mechanistically potentially how fasting can help prevent cancer, and that is by increasing the genetic expression of tumor suppressor proteins, namely P53. And so that's what you're seeing here, and I think that is just incredibly fascinating and so forth. So let's continue on, and I want to get to some live questions. We have some folks here from LA. We have Nampa, Idaho in the house. My brother lives in Boise, so I quite very familiar with Nampa. Thanks for being here, Rick. We have folks from Houston, Texas, Los Angeles, Pennsylvania. Jesus Garcia says he or she has been on OMAD for a year now, which is quite amazing. We have folks from Northern Cal, Canada, and all over the place, which is great. All right. Check my microphone. Is the microphone not working properly? Let me know. Okay. All right. So continuing on here with this study, I want to get into what some of the scientists said here, and hopefully the microphone is going good. Okay. Wow. We have someone from Egypt in the house. That's awesome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the super chat, Dennis. I really appreciate that. Okay, so essentially, the P53 aspect of this is really fascinating as a tumor suppressor protein, and I want to get into what the scientists say here, especially as it relates to cellular senescence. Okay, so the scientists say the idea of intermittent fasting prolonging lifespan and rejuvenation of aged cells has been proposed for many years. Although in senescence, fasting has been suggested to reduce senescence via its induction of autophagy. Nevertheless, the interaction between intermittent fasting and senescence is more convoluted than it seems. Despite the fact that we did not find any statistical significance in P16-INK4A, which is a genetic transcription factor related to a cellular senescence, the eradication of senescent cells, they say that there was an increase within 2 weeks after intermittent fasting and a decrease 1 month after IF, and this reduction continued even further down 1 week at the end of IF. We hypothesize that within the first 2 weeks, ATG5 and BECN1, both of which are related to autophagy enhancement, will augment the expression of P16-INK4A. This is in line with the fact that stress can induce pro-senescent autophagy, and as the cell adapts to its more extended period of intermittent fasting, the high expression of ATG5 and the autophagy initiation protein or autophagy sense and as its basal condition, thus alleviating cellular senescence. So essentially what they're saying is fasting induces autophagy, which helps to alleviate cellular senescence. Cellular senescence, I think, is an under-recognized aspect of disease manifestation and creation. Essentially what happens in cellular senescence is your cells get a little rusty. Cells that should apoptose and die and undergo what's known as pre-programmed cell death don't. So they start to release all these inflammatory cytokines and mediators and start to recruit other cells to behave like senescent cells. And it's really a problem that is linked with aging. Now, as you just heard, there's a lot of vernacular and jargon in there that maybe some of you don't understand and myself don't even understand, but it's important to recognize that the daily fasting was able to increase autophagy and therefore impact senescence, augment that. And so this was, I think, really important. So P53 is an essential protein in cell fate after DNA damage. The activation of P53 can lead to DNA repair, cell cycle arrest, senescence, or apoptosis. Our results showed an increase in P53 expression within 2 weeks and 1 month after intermittent fasting, and a decrease 1 week after the end of the intermittent fasting protocol. And it is in line with the result from Schrupp et al., who found P53 as a significant regulator in response to nutrient depletion. Remember, this is the messenger RNA of P53 gene expression. This, I think, is the most compelling reason to consider daily intermittent fasting. The autophagy, the senescence, okay, fine, that's all important. But what you're seeing here is a demonstrable increase in P53, which is a very important, as you just heard, tumor suppressor protein that helps with DNA damage. So folks that get a lot of ultraviolet ray exposure, maybe you're a flight attendant or you travel a lot, so therefore you're exposed to ionizing radiation. Maybe you're a med tech and you're exposed to CT scan radiation or fluoroscopy or x-rays or some such where your DNA could be damaged. Important to remember that daily fasting could increase P53 activity, and that's intimately involved in DNA repair. So let's read the conclusion, and then I'll get to some of your questions. So in conclusion, we demonstrated in apparently healthy males who engaged in a month of Ramadan fasting that prolonged intermittent fasting may induce autophagy, reduce TNF-alpha, an inflammatory cytokine, and reduce senescence markers. Prolonged intermittent fasting also upregulates the expression of NLRP3, interleukin-1 beta, and an active inflammasome component. Our study exhibits dynamic changes in autophagy, inflammation, and senescence expression in a time point manner, and how these genes might play a role in the expression level of other pathways. Indeed, further studies are required to understand how intermittent fasting influences these genes and how every gene affects the others. Since our study was conducted in normal healthy adult males, future cohort studies are needed to elucidate how intermittent fasting affects overall lifespan and the incidence of diseases. So this is an important point here, and I'll just highlight the study as we get into your questions. An important point to recognize, and that is people who people who exercise get more benefits from intermittent fasting, because it's been shown that exercise also increases the exact proteins that we just talked about. We talked about cellular senescence, we talked about autophagy, we talked about P53. Exercise improves those biomarkers. So the best sort of combination lifestyle endeavor that you can embark on is regular physical activity at the same time every day, and starting your fast and ending your fast at the same time every day. It's called time-restricted feeding. I think but feeding between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. or 11 and 7 or 12 and 8 is a phenomenal window. I think the earlier that you can start your fast, that is the earlier that you can end your last meal is ideal. If you can end your last meal around 7:30, I think that's ideal. Okay. All right. So getting a lot more questions here. We have folks from Argentina, which is phenomenal. I have some friends in Rosario as well as Buenos Aires. We have folks in Melbourne, Australia, Tampa. Thank you all for being here. So question just came in. Mike, are you going to be doing a full video on this? Yes, I am, but this study just came to my desk, and so I wanted to share it with you all here. Oh, Mike is a bit loud. That's what I'm hearing. Okay, let me move that microphone away. Gosh darn it. All right. Okay. Oshi says, Mike, does fasting increase your testosterone levels when you eat protein? Fasting is not a great tool to increase testosterone. Now, it certainly can help insofar as fasting may help improve metabolic health. We know that insulin sensitivity is important with the enzyme aromatase, which can rip testosterone into estrogen. So it's indirectly related to testosterone levels, but it's not going to dramatically increase testosterone. So that's a good question. So it's an indirect way to support metabolic health and testosterone. Okay, we got some folks from LA in the house. Okay. So we have G. Lauro says he has a 4-hour feeding window. We have some folks here that are doing a 22-2 OMAD window. Wow, that's intense. Good for you all. Okay. Let's see. What other questions do we have here? Let's Let's see. All right. I'm just getting to some questions. Really appreciate you all being here. And again, thanks for hitting the like button if you're enjoying the content. That, of course, helps the interwebs know that that this content is of value to you. Okay. What other questions here? OMAD for 50 days straight, feeling great, super focused mentally, weight loss, better sleep, expecting autophagy, but cannot know. Yeah, so I think if you're losing weight, that would be a good way to approximate autophagy enhancement. So that's a great question. Thank you for the comment, and thank you for what you're doing. Okay, so Mohammed Iyasa says he can't wait for Ramadan to start in about 2 weeks. Amazing. I've heard from so many people locally that Ramadan leads to so many different improvements in health. Okay. Hey, Mike, how can building muscle mass and fasting go hand in hand? Yeah, so I think that the thing when it comes to building muscle is making sure that your workouts are fueled appropriately and the fasting window is not too extreme. So something like 18-6, like this study looked at, between 17 and 19 hours of fasting, I think is sufficient. So you're getting enough of a fast in there to get the benefits of the fasting, but you can still appropriately have time to eat sufficient calories to build muscle as well. So that's generally what I do between a 16 and 18 hour fast every day, and making sure that my calories during the feeding time is sufficient to fuel the exercise sessions and improve muscle protein synthesis with protein. Okay, Sue says, does the amount of fat in the feeding window affect the health benefits, the fast health benefits? Yeah, so of course, the amount of calories or nutrition that you were eating is going to impact the overall calorie deficit and potentially the fast. So I think too many people are focused on fat. Focus on protein during the fasting window or during your feeding window, not so much fat. You have enough body fat. So prioritize protein, Sue. So that's a great question. Okay, can you elaborate on the impact of sirtuins and mTOR while on intermittent fasting? Yeah, so mTOR is a growth promoter. It's increased when we have carbohydrates as well as protein. So we want balance. We don't want to be always enhancing autophagy and suppressing mTOR. We want a diurnal or cyclical rhythm of growth and catabolism. We want to be in a catabolic state or breaking down fat and so forth when we're fasting, when we're sleeping. But during the day, when we're active, we want to be supporting the mTOR pathway. And that's where prioritizing protein during your feeding window is a nice balance between, enhancing autophagy and potentially increasing tumor suppressor proteins like P53 that we just talked about right here, which is significantly increased during a consistent 17 to 19 hour fast every day. So that's what I would suggest there. What do you recommend for athletes who want to intermittent fast? Yeah, I think athletes feeding during the day, a window of say 10:30 to 6:30 is a phenomenal window for most athletes, and training. So if you train in the morning, you can refuel shortly thereafter. If you train in the afternoon, you're going to get plenty of calories there. Okay. So that's what I suggest there. Okay. Does CDP choline spike insulin? No, choline is not going to spike insulin. There's so much concern about spiking insulin. What if I have stevia? What about natural flavors? This concern about spiking insulin is really, I understand, the concern, like if you have a soda pop, yeah, that's going to dramatically liquid sugar, whether it's fructose, sucrose, glucose, liquid sugar is how you're going to spike insulin and induce insulin resistance. So having a little stevia, having some GDP choline, like you said, not a big deal. Natural flavors, not a big deal. Okay. Daniel has a long question. How important, relevant is it to consume protein and or creatine immediately after working out? In other words, is it okay to eat only after a few hours after working out? Yeah, Daniel, that's a good question. So do you need to eat right after your workout? Probably not. Now, I generally advise for people who are training intensely to have some sort of energy before or during the workout. Now, again, The caveat there is training intensely. We did a whole video all about reps in reserved and relative perceived exertion. So if you're not training intensely, do you need to have food prior to working out or during the workout? No. If you're going in there and just kind of going through the motions, then you can do a workout fasted, no problem. But when you start to feel that hunger in the post-exercise window, that's when you should refuel, okay? So that's a good question. Okay. Aubrey says, how do you know if you're in ketosis? Well, that's a good question. You can test this. Our friends over at BioCoach make a glucose and ketone meter that is really, really accurate. The strips are sealed. It's a phenomenal product. Check it out. So that's a good question. Okay. Have I tried katsu? Is that a form? That's the form of massage? I haven't done that. Okay, Oshi says, I take iodine, potassium, and B1 when I fast. What other nutrients should I take? Well, as I mentioned, one way that you can kickstart the fast is with Berberine Fasting Accelerator by Myoscience. This is a phenomenal way. And someone just mentioned, how do you test ketones? When you take the Berberine Fasting Accelerator, it's really clear that it's working because you will see an increase in your ketones quite quickly after. So that's one thing to consider. You all know I'm biased as well. I'm a huge fan of electrolytes paired with creatine. I'm also a fan of vitamin D K2. For those who have insufficient omega-3 index levels, I'm a fan of supplementing with EPA DHA. So that's what I suggest. Iodine's a huge one as well. How do you feel about prolonged fasting over 2 weeks? Yeah, for people who are obese or morbidly obese, I think that's a reasonable endeavor to consider. But for people who are under 20% body fat, a 2-week fast is going to be way too much, way too intense. Andy says, Mike, if my breakfast after fasting has good protein and fats, around 50 grams of sugar from honey and fruit, is that too much sugar to have as a first meal after fasting? Andy, I wouldn't be consuming 50 grams of sugar from honey unless you're a very intense athlete. If you're training super intensely, I'm talking CrossFit, ballistic stuff, and you can do 2 to 3 times your body weight in squats and deadlifts, and you're pressing at least your body weight or more. I think that is too much. I really do. So most people don't need that much honey. So good question though. Okay. I tried the Berberine Fasting Accelerator and ended up hypoglycemic. Any recommendations? Yeah, take a little bit less. The URL handle here is G2UPPA. Gatupa, take less. Maybe you took 4 capsules, take 2 capsules instead. But it's effective, and your comment reflects that. Okay, Cassandra is watching the video while in the sauna. That's cool. Thank you for doing that. I was in the sauna last night. I'm taking a day off today, but okay. All right. Marta says, does carnivore diet and fasting help with boosting weight and keeping the inflammatory markers low? Marta, I really do think that that combination of fasting and a zero carb diet is quite effective. I do. So that's what I would suggest. So great question there. Okay. Why do you suggest creatine during a fast? Well, creatine helps particularly in the brain. Your brain is a very high energy demanding, organ. And so creatine can help with glucose utilization in the brain and so forth. So I do suggest that. And creatine helps with hydration. A lot of people think hydration, electrolytes. Well, creatine and water go hand in hand. Creatine helps improve cellular water, and especially when you pair it with electrolytes, there's better absorption there. Okay. Any thoughts on getting rid of flabby skin? Yeah, this is a good question. A lot of people have this question. Some people postulate that fasting might help with that, and that could help as well. I think exercise, I think far infrared light, like something like the Joovv, going in the sauna. I think flabby skin is going to be a multifactorial, multifaceted approach, not just fasting or calorie restriction. So I think that's important. Okay. Good question here from Michael. I would think that BFR would eliminate most of the need for my carbs during exercise, as I do not use them with my B strong system. Yeah, so BFR is great, especially for the accessory muscles like the biceps, triceps, some of the leg muscles. But It's hard to incorporate BFR for, say, your chest and your back, your glutes. That's going to be hard. So BFR is a tool. It's not the sine qua non. It's not the only tool. It's one tool, and it's a great tool to periodize in your exercise sessions, but it's not the only way to go about it. So you still got to train heavy as well and cycle BFR, not only do BFR. But it's an effective tool for sure. Daniel says, coffee and its impact on triglycerides. Can you shed some light on this? Yeah, so coffee is not going to significantly alter triglyceride levels as long as you don't have a lot of liquid fat in the coffee. You know, some people do the bulletproof coffees with butter and MCT and a bunch of cream. So if you're putting a lot of fat in your coffee, you're going to see a post-coffee increase in triglycerides. I shared with you many years ago, and we can review this if you'd like, why I no longer do bulletproof coffees, because I found that the bulletproof coffees dramatically increased my triglyceride levels over 200, which I didn't like. How does infrared therapy help? Workout recovery, brain recovery? Yeah, so infrared therapy like a Juve light using a near infrared and a far infrared can help with mitochondrial function, potentially skin health. But I'm a huge fan of also going in the sauna, whether it's an infrared sauna or a classic Finnish sauna, because of the heat. And so infrared is a way to deliver heat, and so you could use it as such. Great questions, y'all. Ever dealt with low sodium levels during a fast or keto? What did you experience if so? Yeah, so sodium levels can certainly change, and so that's why we recommend, and I think you had a question about this, supplementing with electrolytes when you're fasting and using real salt. So that's a good question. Let's see. A question here from Fernando. How young can someone be to start fasting? Well, my daughter's 10, but she's relatively lean, and so I would not want to advise her to start fasting, nor any other lean adolescent or child. But if the child was overweight and sedentary, I would consider a time-restricted feeding protocol, maybe a 12-hour fast and a 12-hour feeding window. Again, this is in the context of childhood obesity. So we do want to consider the patient or the client or the person, the individual, and not provide rigid structures there. We need to consider, are they overweight? Are they sedentary? Are they having metabolic disease as a result of their diet and their excess body fat? If so, then sure, we can consider fasting for that individual. But children also need nourishment. They're growing. Most children shouldn't be fasting 18 hours a day, unless, of course, they're morbidly obese or some such. Okay. So friends, very much appreciate all your questions. I'll be following the comments after this video is live and so forth. If you're still here, hit that like button. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments. And I'll take one final question here. For those of us over 50, do we keep the same fasting window, shorter or longer? I lift regularly and I am also in commercial construction. Yes, that's a good question. If you're physically active and you also exercise, maybe a feeding window for you or a fasting window could be 16 hours followed by an 8-hour fasting window. Again, this study found improvements in a 17 to 19-hour fasting window. But if your job is very physically demanding and you're also exercising on top of that, you don't want to burn the candle at all ends by fasting excessively, working out, and doing a physically demanding job. So again, think about your volume of physical activity that you're doing in construction and work, plus the exercise. We want to make sure that you're having enough protein, enough calories, so that you're not withering away. So that's a really good question there. So what country is your creatine source from? Here in the USA? That's a good question there. Again, folks, thanks for being here. Thanks for hitting the like button. If you like these Tuesday evening live chats, let me know. We can continue them. And we will catch you all later. And there's another question here. I want to address it. Thoughts on collapsible saunas if you can't afford a real sauna? I'm a huge fan of any type of heat. We like our friends over at High Tech Health. They make the at-home infrared sauna, one of the best low EMF saunas. hightechhealth.com. Check them out. Tell them, and you can save if you let them know that High Intensity Health sent you. But the collapsible saunas are freaking amazing too. You can set them up near an alpine lake or whatnot, which is really great. So I'm a huge fan of all heat, commercial gym saunas, whatever. Start somewhere, my friends. So have a great evening. As always, thanks for being here, and we will catch you all soon. Bye now.